Samsung, proud sponsor of TechBusters.
Welcome back. This is TechBusters. I'm Aki Anastasiou, and we're very lucky to have in the studio with us Stefan Lindegaard, who is based in Copenhagen. He's an author, he's a speaker, he's a strategic advisor, and he speaks often about open innovation and innovation culture. And we've decided to talk to him about African innovation. Innovation in the workplace. Welcome to South Africa, Stefan.
Thank you, Aki.
What is open innovation?
Well, open innovation should be viewed as a mindset. It's about being able to take the internal resources you have in your company and merge those with the external resources. And there are many more external resources than internal resources. If you can bring that together, you can bring better innovation to market faster. Okay,
so to explain to us what's external innovation, what's internal innovation?
Internal innovation is what usually being done by the companies all over. It's usually R&D driven. The R&D people say, now we want to create new products or services. They do so, and then to some extent they're going to make it more holistic, meaning they also involve other business functions. You have lots of internal resources and you can work with those, but where you can really put innovation on steroids is if you bring in external partners.
Fascinating.
Not only to bring innovation to the market, but also to developing the innovation, the products, the innovation outcomes itself.
Well, we've seen how technology has changed the workplace today. You look at where offices were 20 years ago, you look at where they were 10 years ago, you look at us where we were 5 years ago with smartphones. You got smartphones, you got tablets, you got computers. They've really revolutionized the office, and they've changed the game of innovation, have they not?
Well, you see them as ways of actually getting more knowledge across the board. That's how I see it. I mean, one of the things I work with is more about corporate innovation teams, and I try to encourage them to become better communicators and become better using social media, because it used to be that when we talked about PR, branding, and promotion about innovation, it's all about innovation outcomes. But today you also want to talk about innovation capabilities, the corporate innovation capabilities. And if you want your company to be perceived to be innovative, you should start to communicate better, and then many of the tech and the gadgets and the service you mentioned are valuable.
So you're basically saying you've got to create that paradigm shift within your company. Now you look at a company like BlackBerry and you look at a company like Nokia, that 6 years ago they were on top of their game. They were so good that they failed to innovate in the right direction and their competitors overtook them. Is that a fair example to use in the world of technology?
Well, in terms of how important innovation has become, and I think it's even more important to show how the fast pace of change is today. It's ridiculous how fast things are moving today. And now we're talking about the tech industry, but I actually think many other industries could learn from the tech industry, because the things that happened to RIM and Nokia and others could happen to many other industries if they do not adapt fast enough, and if they do not start looking and how they can change how they innovate. If they don't do so, you'll get some good example of what could go wrong in the tech industry.
So how do you get that innovation spark in a company? What are the top 3 steps that a leader can do today to trigger off that innovation, to use the technology, to use all those tools around them to get the staff shifting their minds to using this paradigm shift you talk about?
Well, basically, all starts about innovation culture. But when we talk about innovation culture, you need to understand it's very difficult to just change that. But I would say that companies, they need to experiment much more. They need to be able to embrace failure. And I'm not saying they should embrace failure just for the failure of it. They need to learn the lessons from these failures. And then the third thing is they definitely need to open up their efforts.
Do you think that the culture of innovation has changed incredibly? I mean, you mentioned that the rate of innovation and how it's changing in companies compared to 20 years ago. That cycle is taking place a lot more frequently, right?
It's much faster today, and there's lots of change going on. And that's also when you look out on open innovation or external innovation, you can call that as well. It's a new paradigm of innovation. And that paradigm has just taken hold. The term was coined about 8 years ago, and it's just now we're seeing the big benefits happening. And interesting enough, as most of the world is kind of climbing out of this financial crisis, I mean, innovation is going to become important again, and now it's about experimentation, so higher tolerance for failure, learning from failure, and opening up. And another important thing is it's open innovation, but it's also going beyond the products and technologies and have a more holistic approach. Business model innovation is going to become very important.
Absolutely fascinating. Stefan, thank you for joining us.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
Travel back safely to Copenhagen.
Thank you, Aki.
Thank you very much. Well, that was really fascinating. And when I say raspberry pi to you, you probably think of dessert, right? Well, I know Toby does. But quite soon, it might be a computer that pops into your head first. The Raspberry Pi is a credit-sized single-board computer that was developed in the UK not so long ago, but despite its size, it packs a lot of punch and people are using it for all sorts of projects. Peter from the Pie Factory in Johannesburg joined us earlier to give us a bite about what the Raspberry Pi is all about.